What is going on, Diablo 2 fans? Dobrunsky here, and today's video is going to be a very short one, addressing the latest community post from Pez Radar on patch 2.5 in the upcoming ladder. A single bullet point from this post has the entire community up in arms over a potential nerf to the Hammerdin. I'm not going to spend time discussing whether or not I think that the character deserves or doesn't deserve a nerf. That could be its own separate video, but the single bullet point, a lot of people are kind of extracting from it that the Hammerdin is going to receive a nerf, and I actually don't think that's the case, and I'm going to provide 3 key reasons why I don't think it's going to happen. And also I'm going to reference a little bit of a tidbit of information that I saw Adam post on Twitter, which is essentially new items. So I don't think that anything with this blog post or the Twitter post has any sort of like inference to the Hammerdin being nerfed. So again, feel free to let me know in the comment section below if you guys agree or disagree. Like, any good feedback is always awesome, and I do welcome it. But I don't think in any way, shape, or form the Hammerdin is going to be nerfed. Just going to say that right now. So the bullet point that has everybody up in arms here, it states that players found that some of the terrorized zone content to be easy, but we also can determine what characters played on PTR who offer that specific feedback, and we noticed a lot of this came from Hammerdin players. The team has some ideas on this, and we will be sharing that soon. I expect it to create a bit of a shift in build class opportunities for players. So this is the single bullet point that people are kind of inferencing that the Hammerdin is going to receive a nerf. So right at the end here, it just says, I expect it to create a bit of a shift in build class opportunities for players. Build class opportunities specifically, those 3 words. I don't know how nerfing a character would provide other class opportunities. I think that's very important to point out. But the very first point that I want to mention is that the dev team, ever since the introduction of like D2R, before we even got patch 2.3 and then patch 2.4, now patch 2.5, which by the way, any update that Diablo receives is fantastic, but they have been hell-bent on sort of that idea of retaining the fantasy of the game. So they're very, oftentimes I think, reserved in some of the changes that they implement into the game. One example, for instance, is for mercenaries. I have advocated for adding additional auras to some of the Act 1, 3, and 5 mercenaries to make them more of a viable choice to compare with the Act 2 mercenaries, and they've kind of been very resistant to that change because they don't feel like it fits within the fantasy of D2. So the Hammerdin is one of the single most iconic characters in the game. People that played this game when they were like 12, 13, 14, 15 years later, they're like 35 years old, they have a family, whatever, they've picked up Diablo 2 Resurrected, they want to get back into playing it. I almost guarantee you that every single one of those players remembers the Hammerdin. It's just such an iconic character, so there's no way that they're gonna gut it if they want to like retain the fantasy of the game. It's just not gonna happen. So the second main reason why I think we will not see a Hammerdin nerf is Adam and the team have already committed to mostly focusing on terror zones, and for us to basically expect minimal character balancing in patch 2.5. So reading his post, he specifically says, 2.4 was a big hurrah of changes for D2R, and that was the main focus, but 2.5's main focus was very much on this feature, so terror zones, and a good amount of bug fixes. So based on that post, I would be very surprised, considering we're into the 2nd week of testing now of the terror zones. I don't think that they would want to delay the ladder any further, because this entire blog post pretty much explains the reasoning why the ladder has been delayed, and they're committing to trying to launch it as soon as possible. You really think they're going to turn around and just shift a whole bunch of new character balancing and skill damage, and then potentially make a bit of a shit show like right before the ladder launches? I just don't think that would happen. And the second kind of reason tying into this main second post here is Adam sort of like gave us a little bit of tidbit of information on Twitter, where he specifically states, no one is thrilled about the extra time. So again, he's referencing the delayed ladder launch, but hoping we mitigate it for the future, but excited for the changes, including the items we haven't talked about yet. So tying into the first point about the new build class and opportunities, and then the little kind of sneak peek of new items that he posted on Twitter, again, that makes me think that these new items are going to sort of like buff some of the underutilized characters in the game. So maybe like fire damage dealing characters might be an additional way to pierce monster fire res, so they're more viable, and again, they have more opportunities. I read that as new items buffing up some of the characters that can't farm as many terror zones, and kind of the opposite of a Hammerdin nerf. So for the third and final reason why I think that we will not see any sort of Hammerdin nerf is that way back before the actual launch of patch 2.4, when we saw the tentative notes, the devs specifically committed to having no intention to nerf some of the existing meta.
So now we kind of get into like the philosophy around like why we made these changes, what made the changes, and things like that. So kind of above all, before we even get to these bullets, like the goal is not, okay, we're going to nerf all these classes that people think are OP.
Right.
Because why would we do that? That's not fun. People are having fun.
I'm personally not a big fan of nuking any of the meta. I think that bringing up some of the still existing weaker classes to make them a little bit more viable choice is a better approach. There's always going to be a #1 character, whether it's #1 boss farming character, Ubers, density clearing, magic fighting, etc. There's always going to be a #1. If you just nuke the Hammerdin, something just takes its place. So I think that for the most part, it's fine. Like, I would rather see attention put towards like making the martial arts assassin, like Phoenix Strike or something, a little bit stronger. I would like to see like the next hit delay removed off of Volcano to make the Fire Druid a little bit stronger. I would like to see a shapeshifting druid be able to teleport before we worry about swatting down a single character. And I do want to point out that in a game specifically like Diablo 2 or Path of Exile or even Diablo 4, there has to be a time investment for gear, but then a reward for obtaining that said gear. So a Hammerdin or Jabazon or a Lightning Sorceress, they're really good examples of that, where it does take a while to get a Paladin Torch, Anti Charm, Enigma, Hodo, a really good Spirit, Mara's, Caster Amulet, Arachnid's Mesh, etc. Once you've achieved all of that, you are rewarded with a very strong character. And you can argue like maybe it's a little bit too like overtuned, but for a lot of the characters that I just mentioned, it's the same thing for like a Jabazon. You get Infinity, you get Griffins, you get T-Strokes, whatever you want to use. You're rewarded with a very powerful character. Same for the Lightning Sorceress. But there's a lot of builds, like a martial arts, like Phoenix Strike Assassin. You can have Torch, Annie, full inventory of martial arts skillers. You can have like a level 45 Phoenix Strike, and it still sucks ass. That's an example of like if you invest a bunch of time and effort and you're not really rewarded with a powerful character. So that's kind of why I don't really like nerfs in general. And if you were to nerf something, you definitely want to bring something else up. Like, I just don't see the point as I get older and I have less time to invest in Diablo 2. Like, if I can only play 15 or 20 hours a week, I don't want characters to be nerfed so I can clear monsters slower, so it takes me even longer to acquire gear. But that's its own rant on itself. So that's kind of like my quick blabber about the reason why I think that we will not see a Hammerdin be nerfed. I'm really excited for these new items, new build class opportunities. I'm reading that as like Fire Druid and Fire Sorceress get a chance to finally excel for once, which should be nice instead of everything being Blizzard and Lightning, etc. But yeah, I'm excited, guys. Let me know in the comment section below if you guys agree, disagree. You're excited for the new items. You don't like my philosophy on power, reward versus time investment, etc. Any feedback is always welcome. And if you guys enjoyed this video, if you could throw a like on it, that'd be awesome. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.